Nigeria's late December 2025 bombings. What happened and what is known? Two late December incidents in Nigeria involve separate forms of violence. A suicide bombing at a mosque in Madurguri, it killed several civilians. And then here, USA Today, Associated Press, Truth Out, Military.com, and several other article outlets have actually posted some bombing incidences that have actually happened, unbeknownst to some people going around saying that there were no bombings. There were bombings. And so Nigeria town bombed by Trump has no known history of anti-Christian. Now this is what was more recent and more out there. And a lot of people wanted to get on social media and try to avoid the conversation, but it's out and it's already in people's face. People are aware of this, and I'm hearing people, young people who are Nigerians on TikTok voicing their opinions on it. Then it happened. So, and people who are currently living in those areas or they have family in those areas are validating that yes, it did happen. So Nigerian town, it says news and war and peace. So this is out of Truth Out. Nigerian town bombed by Trump. This was on Christmas. It has no known history of anti-Christian violence. That was what the whole premise was. And I will add this in there. A lot of people were mad at Nicki Minaj and blaming her because of her conspiracy theories. So experts say that Trump's narrative of a holy war in Nigeria threatens to inflame religious tensions and incite violence. This is by Stephen Prager, out of COMMONDREAMS, December 27, 2025. Take a look at this, you guys, how bad this looks here. So you can see this is no joke here. So a general view of a destroyed structure in Offa, Nigeria, December 27, 2026, caused by debris from expended munitions that fell from the U.S. strikes on unsuspected militant linked to the Islamic State group in Nigeria. And so it says the independent journalist of Truth Out faces unprecedented authoritarian censorship. If you value progressive media, please make a year-end donation. So I will speak on that a little bit. So, and I'm gonna go a little into details, some brief detail. So I've been hearing from my son, because you know he's on TikTok, and some of the other young people saying that the Trump administration is trying to take over TikTok, and they're officially gonna take it over. He gave a date, so they haven't yet taken it over, but they're about to take it over. And then there's some other social media sites that they're about to take over, and then the journalism, they're also doing a lot of censorship of journalists. And so that's where all of this is coming from. So we're becoming, I hate to say this, almost like a surveillance state. So that, to add that into the already fuel that's already lit. So going into the article, it says when President Donald Trump launched a series of airstrikes in Nigeria on Christmas, this is what happened. He described it as an attack against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting, viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. Okay, so I heard a young Nigerian woman on TikTok who basically says she has family still there and she's connected. She says that it has nothing to do with this. He's using that as the excuse. It has to do with resources. This is what I'm hearing from other Nigerians. The minerals, the resources, they want to come in. And she says, yes, she loves her people. She's Nigerian. This is what the young lady was saying. But she says some of them will kind of throw Trump parade. They like Trump. And I don't know what this is about, but I've seen this even here in the U.S. where, we had black people that claimed they were black Trump supporters. And somehow they were, like convinced that he's doing something for society and something in mind for them, which really he's not. And it's the same for other people in other groups, in other cultures, where they somehow are convinced that Trump is going to do something for them. And it turns around, he's doing a lot of things against their interests, against their culture, and against their people. So this is yet another situation. So going on with the article, it says Northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians. This is what he claims that was their motive of doing this bombing on Christmas of all days. My goodness, no day's a good day to bomb somebody, but Christmas? Come on. I mean, well, I'm not into, we know the holidays are pagan, but still think about it. That should also key into, they don't really practice what they always say that they preach, Christmas is supposed to be a family day, this, that, and the other. And then look what they go and do. While everybody's celebrating here in the U.S. and thinking everything is cool, and look what we hear, So, but locals in the town that were hit during the strike say that terrorism has never been a problem of them. Okay, so these are people who live there. On Friday, CNN published a report based on the interviews with several residents of Jabo, which was hit by the U.S. missile during Thursday's attack, which landed a few feet away from the town's only hospital. The rural town of Jabo is part of a Sokoto state in the northwestern of Nigeria, which the Trump administration and the Nigerian government said was hit during the strike. So both sides have said militants were killed during the attack, but have not specified their identities or the number of casualties as well. Think about it, people. I've mentioned this before. Casualties. You know what that is? Learn what this means. That is just regular women, children, people who are like workers, locals in the town, have no knowledge of what's going on, and they're living their lives, and all of a sudden this attack comes and they're dead. That could happen here in the U.S. Easy. You are a casualty as well. Workers, people who vote, people who think they know everything, and you vote for stuff like this, and then people retaliate, and now you get killed, your family gets killed. You are considered a casualty. They don't have no emotional attachment to you, just like the 9/11. Think about it. And so it specifically says here that Kabir Adamu, a security analyst from the Beacon Security and Intelligence in Abuja, told Al Jazeera that likely targets are members of La Kurawa. I may not have pronounced it correctly because the names are like a different dialect. So a recently formed offshoot of ISIS, of course, is what they claim them to be, allegedly. But the Trump administration explanation that their home is at the center of a Christian genocide left many residents in Jabo confused. So this is what CNN has also reported. So while parts of Sokoto face challenges with banditry, kidnappings, attacks, and armed groups, including La Kurawa, which Nigeria classifies as a terrorist organization due to suspected affiliations with the Islamic State, villagers say Jabo is not known for terrorist activity and that local Christians coexist peacefully with the Muslim majority as well. So now, I want to bring something into this. This is more my thing here. That's why I don't really like aligning myself with these religious groups. because they fight too, and people in the U.S. can't seem to get that in their head. They just think that this sky god is gonna save them, and I feel like it's made a lot of U.S. people passive. I feel like they gave that to people who don't have money, don't will power, don't have any dog in the fight, and so you can't make the high platform decisions that these people in government make. And so the very government that you're living under or that rules over you, you're praying for something to happen or go away, or waiting for somebody to deliver you this savior complex. You think, I even saw where they had a CPAC convention where they had a statue of Trump in gold, and people were rubbing the gold statue. Now, what I remember in the Bibles that people claim they're so akin to reading and they're so much following, you don't really practice what you claim you believe in, because it says that you're not supposed to worship idols. And isn't Trump, being a statue and being who he is, the figure of the U.S. or leader of what they claim was the free world, was no longer, it's like democracy is being broken down bit by bit. They're idolizing him. They're worshiping him. And he's using this as a weapon of war. Religion. How can you do this? And then I have to mention this. You have other political pundits, people on the right, who also have used religion in the same voice, and then have used hatred and racism in the same sentences. But you still worship them. And if anybody says anything against their name, they lose their job, or you're trying to figure out how to get them fired. All right. But when an actor here in the U.S., Rob Reiner, he was murdered, and he was doing all of these things, philanthropy and trying to help different groups. Trump, he gets to say all this horrible stuff about him. But if you say something about somebody and make your opinion, you get thrown under the bus, fired, attacked, viciously, verbally attacked online. But you can't say anything, or they try to, deactivate your accounts, do all these things to go after you. But he can say all this stuff against Rob Reiner. It is contradictory to everything that he claims that you guys are practicing, quote unquote. So here it says that going on with the article, Nigeria classifies this as a terrorist organization due to suspected affiliations of the Islamic State. And so it says villagers say that Jabo is not known for terrorist activity, and that local Christians coexist peacefully. So these people are basically telling you they live there. They're telling you what is the real deal, but you want to believe otherwise. Or you want to believe some hothead, what she thinks she calls herself, an entertainer, over her conspiracy theories. And then fall in line with that. That is crazy. So it says Bashar Isaiah Jabo, a lawmaker who represents the town and surrounding area in Nigeria Parliament, described the village to CNN as a peaceful community and that has no known history of ISIS, La Kurara, or any other terrorist groups operating in the area. So he basically saying, why this bombing? Why are you doing this? There is nothing going on over here that you need to bring this brute force like this. So while the town is predominantly Muslim, think about it. Residents Suleiman Kajara told reporters, "We see Christians as our brothers. We don't have religious conflict, so we weren't expecting this." You hear that? Why are you doing these U.S. airstrikes in Nigeria to a town where there is nothing going on that you have to even do that? So that brings the question to why. What else would this be? So it says Nigeria, Africa, most populations nations with the more than 237 million people, has a long history of violence between Christians and Muslims, with each making up about half of the population. However, Nigerian officials have disputed the claims by Republican leaders, including U.S. Senate Ted Cruz, who have claimed that the government is ignoring and even facilitating the mass murder of Christians. The senator recently claimed, without citing a source, for the figures that since 2009, over 50,000 Christians in Nigeria have been massacred, and over 18,000 churches and 2,000 Christian schools have been destroyed, and by the Islamic group Boko Haram. Cruz is correct that many Christians have been killed by Boko Haram, but according to the reports, the U.S.-based Armed Conflict Location, the Event Data Project, and the Council on Foreign Relations, the majority of the approximately 53,000 civilians killed by the group since 2009 have been Muslim. So moreover, the areas where Boko Haram is most active are in northeastern Nigeria, far away from where Trump strikes were conducted. Okay, attacks on Christians cited in October by Cruz, meanwhile, have been in Nigeria's Middle Belt region, which is separate from the violence in the north. So that's mainly where it's centered. So the Nigerian government has pushed back on what they have called an oversimplified narrative coming out of the White House and from figures of the U.S. media. We know who those are, like HBO Bill Mather, who has echoed Cruz's overwrought claims of Christian genocide, portraying Nigeria's security challenge as a targeted campaign against a single religious group is a gross misrepresentation reality, said Nigerian Information Minister Mohammed Idris Malaji. While Nigeria, like many countries, has faced security challenges, including acts of terrorism perpetuated by criminals, couching the situation as a deliberate, systematic attack on Christians is inaccurate and harmful. It oversimplifies a complex, multifaceted security environment and plays into the hands of terrorists and criminals who seek to divide Nigerians along religious or ethnic lines. Thea Butler, a religious scholar in the University of Pennsylvania, has criticized the Trump administration's attempts to turn the complex situation in Nigeria into a holy war. So this theme is persecution of Christians is a very politically charged and actually religiously charged theme for evangelicals across the world. And when you say that Christians are being persecuted, that's a thing, she told Democracy Now! In November. It fits this sort of savior narrative of this American sort of ethos, almost what I was saying right now, that is seeing itself going into countries for a moral war, a moral suasion, as it were, to do something to help other people. So Nigerian also notably produces, think about it, resources. It produces more crude oil than any other country in Africa. So Trump explicitly argued that the U.S. should carry out regime change in Venezuela for the purposes of taking back the nation's oil. Butler has doubted the sincerity of Trump's concern for the nation's Christians, as I do as well. I'm interjecting that, due to his administration's denial for the entry for Nigerian refugees, as well as the virtually every other refugee group, with the exception of the white South Africans. Think about it, y'all. He's deported everybody else except those white South Africans they welcomed into this U.S. country. And he's put travel bans on everybody. And most of the countries are sub-Saharan African countries, or they're Asian, or they're, like Middle Eastern countries. So she said that I think this is some sort of disingenuous to say you're going to go in and save Christianity in Nigeria. And what did he just do? add more travel bans, and they're also on the list. So when you have, I added that in there. So when you have, ban Nigerians from coming to this country. She just said that before I read it. So I'm just telling you, it's like you should read between the lines, you guys. Don't listen to what his lies are. He has a knack for lying about everything. So this is pretty much the whole article, but pay close attention to what this is really about. It is about takeover. It is about power. It's about land grabs. Think about what happened in Gaza. They were talking about making it a resort over there. After they bombed, all that area was bombed. All that area was destroyed. And now they're talking about, they even had a picture that was floating around, like a video or a picture that was floating around, showing Trump and showing Netanyahu sitting on a beach like they were at a resort, like as if they were almost in like a Florida beach resort. It was disgusting. It was disgusting after all those women and children died over there. So that's just my take on it. I don't know, what you guys, if you've been paying attention to all of this, but come on, y'all. This was uncalled for right here. And then one of these young ladies that's from Nigeria, she said that those girls, they weren't Christians, they were Muslims. Those girls, they were Muslims. I believe they were some girls, they were kidnapped or something like that. Paraphrasing what she was saying, just trying to think back to what she was saying, but she basically brought out the point that they were not Christian girls, they were Muslims. And it did say this in this article. So it validates what she said. So Nicki Minaj doesn't know what she's talking about. All these other people, come on, y'all, look at what's really going on, and then think about all of the oil, all the resources, the minerals, all that stuff. They are trying to take over. And she basically said that some of her people don't think clear. We got people like that here in the US, probably too many of them, that don't think clear, and they're just in it for the profit. And that's what it is, even at the expense of people's death.